morning, everyone. Welcome back to the another session called as a molecular basis of inheritance. I think all of us, you have remember, we studied the introductory part of this lesson called as molecular basis of inheritance. So, what we have studied, studying about what are nucleic acid and its types, that is DNA and the RNA. And also, we have studied about the chemical composition of DNA, and there are three very important components, that is the sugar, nitrogenous, that is 4 nitrogenous base, and the phosphoric acid. And also the type of phosphoric acid which is present in a DNA is the orthophosphoric acid. And moving on to the today's section where we are going to study about the structure of the DNA. So, and all of you have come across the picture of the DNA, right? So, it is the, just like what? It is twisted manner. So, it is called as what? Double helical structure or the double stranded DNA. So, it is a double stranded DNA. So, what is the name which is given to this? It is called as what? Double stranded DNA structure, or it can otherwise called as double helix model of DNA. It is also called as what? Double stranded DNA structure, and which is also called as double helix model of DNA. So, it is just look like more or less it is just like a twisted ladder. So, you know, we always compare the structure of DNA molecule to the twisted ladder, right? So, with the upright and the rungs. So, the upright are made up of sugar and the phosphoric acid, and the rungs of the steps are made up of the nitrogenous base. You can see here the steps, these rungs we are made up of what? Nitrogenous base, and this uprights which is made up of sugar and the phosphate, which is act as a backbone, right? So, and as I said, the nitrogenous base, according to the Irwin-Chargaff rule, that is what we are going to study in today's section. So, what is this structure of DNA all about? So, please refer the notes and as well as the textbook for the detailed structure of the DNA for also the further reference, right? I think all of you might have come across two very important scientists, that is Watson and the Crick, that is James D. Watson and Frederick H. Crick. So, the James Watson and the Crick. So, the James D. Watson and the F. H. Crick, that is Crick and the Watson, proposed a model for DNA structure, and it was called as double helical structure of DNA. So, there were two important scientists named as another two important scientists named as Rosalind Franklin and Wilkins. So, Rosalind Franklin and Wilkins. So, other scientists other than James D. Watson and Frederick H. Crick, the Rosalind Franklin and the Wilkins are the two scientists. You know, they analyze the DNA testing. That means they have analyzed the DNA. That means DNA tested in the X-ray. So, that is a crystallographic technique. So, this Franklin and Wilkinson, as you know, that they have analyzed the DNA by using the X-ray crystallography technique and indicate the possible helical structure. So, based on these ideas, based upon those the scientists which has given the idea, so that is Franklin and Wilkinson, that is Rosalind Franklin and the Wilkinson's idea, that is what the James D. Watson and the F. H. Crick proposed the double helical model of the DNA. So, these are the first person who had given the double helical structure. So, they have given the idea. Based on those ideas, the James D. Watson and the Frederick H. Crick, they have proposed the DNA helical model. As I said, Franklin and Wilkinson in 1950, they have analyzed the DNA using the X-ray crystallography technique, and which will indicate the possible helical structure. So that has been indicate the possible helical structure of the DNA. And the one scientist by name Chargaff in 1948. Chargaff in 1948. 1948. So this Chargaff is in 1948 conducted the chemical analysis of DNA and proposed what? So that is what we call it as Chargaff's rules. So of base equivalence, or we can also call as complementary base pairing. So what is this complementary base pairing? It is called as base equivalence rule, or otherwise which is called as Chargaff's rules. So according to this base equivalence rule or the Chargaff rules, so with the respect to DNA, A always, that means adenine, A means what? Adenine will always what? Base pair to the thymine. So it is A always base pair to the thymine. So that is with the 2 double bond, right? So A, that is adenine, which is a double bond with the thymine. So where the cytosine, one of the amino acid, will base pair with the guanine with the 3 means triple bond. That is guanine, it is bond with a triple bond with the what? Cytosine. So that is A is equal A double bond T, that is G triple bond C. So and this is called as, so that is A always base pair to, that is adenine always base pair to thymine with 2 double bonds, and cytosine or guanine is always base pair to what? Guanine with the 3 double bond, that is triple bond, sorry. So it is or it is, we can say that vice versa. So this is called as what? Base equivalence rule. Understood? So this is how it come across, right? You can see in this diagram, that is A base pair. So here you can see here A base pair to T double bond, that is T base pair to A, and G triple bond C, and C triple bond G. You can see that. So you can see in your diagram, and please refer to the textbook also. So that is A is base pair to T and the C is base pair to G. So these base pairs which will forms the rungs or the steps, and the upright will forms what? Upright will forms the sugar phosphate backbone. That is steps are made up of nitrogenous base. So according to Chargaff's rules, that is adenine pairs with the thymine with a 2 hydrogen bond, that is A is A double bond T, that is hydrogen, that is adenine which will base pair to the thymine, and the guanine which will base pair to the cytosine with a 3 hydrogen bond, that is G triple bond C, right? So the number of purines is always equal to the number of pyrimidines. So that means the 2 purines and 2 pyrimidines, and one you should remember here, the purine will never base pair with the purine, and the pyrimidine with never base pairs with the pyrimidine. So purine always base pairs to with the pyrimidine, and the pyrimidine are always base pairs to the purine. So because of this stability, or the otherwise it will call the bond, that because of this stability the bond or otherwise it will be break. So whatever the bond it is present, it will be going to break, that is the bond will break. So and there will be a no base pairing. So once the bond has been break, so there will be a no base pairing. So this type of base pairing is called as what? Complementary base pairing. So what do you mean by complementary? Complementary means opposite. See A and T, C and G, right? So this is called as what? Complementary base pairing. A double bond with a T, that is A double bond T, C triple bond G, that is G triple bond C, it is vice versa. So A will not base pair with the G and C will not base pair with the T. So this is called as what? Complementary base pairing. So hope you have understood this very important concept. Now moving on to the double helical structure of Watson and the Crick model of DNA. As already told you that as I told, please refer the textbook and also the notes for your further reference for the diagram. So this James D. Watson and Francis H. Crick, who is the person. So these James D. Watson and the Francis H. Crick in 1953 of Cambridge University in England proposed the DNA double helix model using the available data. Whose available data? Rosalind Franklin and the Wilkins in 1950, who had given some data about the double helix DNA. Based on that, the James D. Watson and the Francis H. Crick of the Cambridge University in England, they have proposed the DNA double helix model using those data. Right. So these were those scientists who were also awarded the Nobel Prize for this wonderful contribution, who has proposed the double helix model of DNA. So that is the James D. Watson and the Francis H. Crick in 1953 of Cambridge University in England, who has proposed the DNA double helix model using the available data. So they have been awarded what? Nobel Prize. As you know that a Nobel Prize is the highest awarded given for the contribution. Right. So now what was the basis of them to propose the double helix structure? It is based on the available data which has been given by Rosalind Franklin and the Wilkins in 1950. So it is based on the available data, that is the DNA. It is made up of what? The two polynucleotide strands, and as I said, it is made up of two polynucleotide strands, that is forms a double helix. So you can see here, that is forms, it is a, you can see this is the what? Polynucleotide strands, which will form a what? Double helix. Here the only thing is the twisted form like this. You can see here is the twisted form. So and the structure of the DNA, which will remembers that of the twisted ladder or the spiral staircase, where repeated units of sugar and the phosphate which will form the backbone. You can see here. So that is base phase which will form a sugar and phosphate which will form a backbone. So the structure of DNA which will resembles that of the twisted ladder or the spiral staircase, where the repeated units of sugar and the phosphate which will forms the backbone, and the nitrogen bases are projected towards the center, which will resembles the steps. You can see here this nitrogenous base, that is the base pair which will looks like a staircase, that is rungs. Understood? Please understood this DNA structure, which was that is James D. Watson and the Francis H. Crick in 1953 of a Cambridge University in England proposed the double helix model using the available data. So for that they are awarded a Nobel Prize. So it is one of the highest awarded given for their contribution. So it is it is based on the available data, the DNA which is made up of polynucleotide strand which will form a double helix. So the structure of the DNA which is resemble that of the twisted ladder or a spiral staircase. So where the repeated units of sugar and the phosphate will forms a backbone, which will forms a backbone, and the nitrogenous base, you can see here this nitrogenous base which will act as a steps. That means it will project it towards the center, which will resembles like a steps. So now moving on to the remaining points with reference to the structure of DNA, which is proposed by James D. Watson and the Francis H. Crick. So the two strands are anti-parallel, that is one strand runs in a 5-strand to 3-strand direction and other one will what will run into 3 strand and 5 strand direction. You can see 3 strand and the 5 strand direction. So they are anti-parallel to each other. They will run anti-parallel, right? So the strands, the 2 strands are the anti-parallel. That is one strand which will run in 5 strand to 3 strand direction, and another one will be 3 strand to 5 strand. So it is a very important point to be noted. So the base pairing follows what? The base pair which will follows the Chargaff's rule. That is the Chargaff's base equivalence or the complementary base pairing. That is A plus G is equal to C plus T, which is equal to 1. Right? A plus G which is equal to C plus T, that is equal to 1. So this is the very important point to be noted. So what is this Chargaff's base rule or the complementary base rule? That is A plus G is equal to C plus T, that is equal to 1. What does it mean? Adenine base, that is adenine pairs with the thymine with 2 hydrogen bonds, and the guanine base pairs with the cytosine of the 3 hydrogen bond. So the amount of adenine which is equal to the amount of the thymine, and the amount of guanine is which is equal to the amount of cytosine according to this what? Chargaff's rule. So the ratio of what? A plus T divided by G plus C is equal to what? Is equal to 1. It is always constant. That is A plus T divided by the ratio, that is adenine plus thymine and cytosine by that is guanine, is always constant. So the bases in the 2 polynucleotide strands are the complement to one another. So they are very much complement to one another. So thus the 2 strands are held together by the weak hydrogen bond which will form between the nitrogen bases, and the distance. So I can see the distance of these 2 strands is of what? So this 2 strand distance will be 20 Armstrong. So and one full turn, you can see this one full turn which will act as, so what will be the value of this one full turn of this helix, or that one full turn we called as what? Gyri. So what is the 2 distance of this nitrogenous base? It is 20 Armstrong. That is one turn of the helix which is called as gyri, which will measures what? 34 Armstrong. So this one turn which will measures the 34 Armstrong. So each gyri which will accommodate 10 base pairs. So this each gyri which will accommodate what? 10 base pairs, and the distance between each base pairs is of 3.4 Armstrong. So this one distance, so one from one base pair to the another base distance will be 3.4 Armstrong. Understood? It is very important. They may ask for in your exams too. About the structure of the DNA. Now, what is the function of this DNA? So, as we know that DNA is a genetic material, right? So, what are the functions of the DNA? So as we know that DNA plays a great role. So it is a genetic material of all the organism except the RNA virus. So it undergoes self-replication. As I said, DNA is always a double stranded. It will be never single stranded. So it makes a replica of itself. So one of the parental strand which will goes to the daughter cell, and that is the reason why the offsprings or the children will resemble their parents in some extent. So and it is also synthesis the RNA, and it is also synthesis the protein, as I said. So next it will takes part in the gene mutation, gene recombination, that will brings about what? Variation. So it is a very important because of their contribution between 2 very important genetic strands. So hence there is a genetic recombination which is going to give rise to a what? So they will give rise to the variation. So these are the very important function of the DNA. Now moving on to the central dogma of what? Life. What is the central dogma? The central dogma of molecular biology will state that genetic information from DNA to RNA to protein. So that is the flow of information from DNA to RNA to protein. So the genetic information, the flow of genetic information from DNA to mRNA, it is mRNA, and to what? Protein, which is called as what? Central dogma of molecular biology. So the flow of this genetic information from RNA to DNA is called as what? Reverse transcriptase. So what is this transcriptase? So from mRNA to the DNA. So that is we call as what? Reverse transcriptase. It occurs in some virus, that is the for example the retrovirus. The information, the flow of this genetic information from RNA to DNA, which is the reverse transcriptase. You have learnt about this reverse transcriptase. Right? This is called as central dogma. They will ask for 2 marks. What do you mean by central dogma? It is very important. Now moving on to the next very important concept, that is the packing of DNA helix or the nucleosome model. Please refer the diagram in your notes as well as in the textbook. Now moving on to the next very important thing is packing of helix or the nucleosome model of DNA. So where you can see this nucleosome model. So what is this nucleosome model all about? So and this diagram is very important. Usually they will ask for 5 marks in your exam. So in prokaryotes with all well defined nucleus, the DNA is organized into large loops held by certain positively charged protein in a region called as nucleotide. So in a prokaryotes with a no well defined nucleus, the DNA is organized into large loops held by a certain positively charged protein in a region called as nucleotide. But in case of eukaryotes, so in prokaryotes what happens? That is, there will be with a no well defined nucleus, the DNA is organized into a large loops held by a certain positively charged protein. That region we call as nucleotide. But in case of eukaryotes, the DNA is unwrapped. So that is in case of eukaryotes, the DNA is wrapped around. So here you can see that in the diagram, this DNA, it has been wrapped around. So the DNA is wrapped around the protein units. You can see that the protein units. So that is the positively charged histone, octamer histone. That means, what do you mean by histone? Histones are nothing but a protein. Histones are nothing but a protein, and they are rich in a basic amino acids, namely lysine and the arginine. So the histones are organized to form a unit of 8 molecules called what? Histone octamer. So they will form a 8 molecules. The unit of 8 molecules called as histone octamer. So the octamer, which is composed of 4 pairs of histone molecules, namely H2A, H2B, H3 and the H4. So in eukaryotes, the DNA is wrapped around the positively charged histone octamer into a structure called as nucleosome. You can see here. So this DNA has been wrapped the protein molecule to form a that is positively charged histone octamer into a structure called as nucleosome. So what is this histone? Histone are the protein and these are rich in what? They are rich in the basic amino acids, namely lysine and the arginine. So these histones are organized to form a unit of 8 molecules which is called as histone octamer. Right. So these histones are, as I told, they are organized to form a unit of 8 molecule called as histone octamer. So in this octamer, which is composed of 4 pairs of histone molecules, namely H2A, H2B, H3 and the H4. Right. So this negatively charged DNA, this DNA is negatively charged. So the negatively charged DNA is wrapped around the positively charged histone octamer. So this histone octamer positively charged. This DNA is a negatively charged. So this negatively charged DNA is wrapped around the positively charged histone octamer to form a unit or a structure called what? Nucleosome. So and this nucleosome which consists of 200 base pairs. The typical nucleosome which consists of what? 200 base pairs of DNA helix. So which is consist of what? 200 base pairs of DNA helix. You can see here this nucleosome consists of 200 base pair. So it is a wound around that, hence it is called as a linker DNA. So you can see this DNA has been wrapped around. So it is called a linker DNA. So that links one histone molecule to the another histone molecule. That is the adjacent nucleosomes are connected by unbound DNA called what? Linker DNA. Right. So that is the H1 type of histone protein is attached to the, where it is attached to the linker DNA. Next, these nucleosomes are repeating unit of structure in the nucleus. So this nucleosome which will be repeating unions in the structure of the nucleus which will form what? Chromatin. So the nucleosome in chromatin are seen as a bead on string. So which look like a bead on string. So this bead on string, that is bead on ring structure in the chromatin is packed to form a chromatin fibers that are further coiled and condensed during the metaphase of the cell division. So the chromatin fibers which will be condensed at the metaphase stage of cell division to form what? Chromosomes. So next, this packing of chromatin are at the higher level which will require the additional set of the protein which is called as non-histone chromosomal protein, that is NHC, non-chromosomal histone protein, histone chromosomal protein. So in the typical nucleus, certain regions of chromatin are loosely packed and they are stained lighter so than the other region. So that is the nucleus, the chromatin has of, in the nucleus, the chromatin has of 2 regions. They are the euchromatin and the heterochromatin. What is this euchromatin? Euchromatin is the what? Loosely packed and they lightly stained. So the loosely packed chromatin are stained lightly, that we called as what? Euchromatin. So that is called as what? Euchromatin. And next is heterochromatin. It is densely packed and darkly stained region when compared to the euchromatin. So that is called as what? Heterochromatin. It is very important for your exam. They may ask for what is the difference between euchromatin and the heterochromatin, or they may ask for what is euchromatin. So what is the difference? In euchromatin, the chromatin are loosely packed, whereas in heterochromatin they are tightly packed. And here in euchromatin they are lightly stained, and in the heterochromatin they are darkly stained. And in euchromatin, and it is the transcriptionally active region, whereas in the heterochromatin it is transcriptionally inactive region. So this is the difference between euchromatin and the heterochromatin. So hope you got to remember, or hope you have understood this packing of DNA helix of the nucleosome. It is very important, and they are going to ask the diagram as well as the explanation for the 5 marks. Now moving on to the another next, that is very important concept, that is Frederick experiment. Why this experiment done by this scientist called as Frederick Griffith? So as you know that the most of the organism DNA act as a genetic material, so which is responsible for the hereditary character. So with this experiment, Frederick wanted to prove that DNA is a genetic material or the transforming principle. So this transforming principle was put across by Frederick Griffith by taking an example of this mice. So now let us understand or let us study what is this experiment all about. This Frederick Griffith carried out a series of experiments in a bacteria. As I said, he wanted to prove that DNA is a genetic material or the transforming principle where they will bring about the changes, and this experiment he did the experiment in the bacteria. And the bacteria which he took to conduct this experiment was the Streptococcus pneumoniae. He conducted the experiment taking in bacteria. Which bacteria? It is a Streptococcus pneumonia. So as we know that this bacteria which will cause a serious disease called as pneumonia. And that led to a discovery of bacterial transformation. That is the Frederick Griffith. So the Frederick Griffith which will carry out the series of experiment in the bacteria. So he wanted to prove that DNA is a genetic material or the transforming principle where it will bring about the changes in the, that is changes which will changes the that led to the discovery of the transformation. Right. So, so there are two forms of bacteria. Here he has taken a Streptococcus pneumonia. So that he had taken that bacteria is of two forms. So which he came across, one is called as round, that is rough non-virulent. So rough non-virulent, that is the R strain. And the smooth virulent S strain. So he took there was two types of forms of bacteria, namely he came across one is called as rough non-virulent R strain and other one is the smooth virulent, the S strain. So that is R strain bacteria and the S strain bacteria. So this S strain bacteria is usually capsulated and the R strain is the non-capsulated. So this S strain is virulent, that this R strain is a non-virulent. So what do you mean by virulent? That which will causes the disease in the mice is called as virulent. And the one bacteria which is not going to cause the diseases in mice are called as non-virulent. Understood? So he discovered the two types of bacteria, namely rough non-virulent, that is R strain, and the smooth virulent, that is the S strain. So he conducted the experiment like this. So now let us see one by one how did he conduct this experiment. So first you can see here in the first stem, this Frederick Griffith injected the live R strain to a mice. As we know that the R strain bacteria is a non-virulent and obviously the mice will be alive. So the R strain has been injected to the mice where the mice has been alive. Then in second step, he injected the live S strain to the mice. He has been injected to these mice where the mice has been died, because as we know the S strain is virulent, which will cause what? They will cause the disease and the mice will be died. So in that is that the S strain, it has been injected to the mice and the mice will become dead. So in third step, he injected the heat killed S strain to the mice. So what will happen? Though the S strain, heat killed S strain has been injected to mice, the mice become alive. So what do you mean by heat killed S strain? When the S strain bacteria is subjected to heat. That means the S strain bacteria is subjected to heat. So then obviously what will happen? when that will become non-virulent. So that bacteria will become what? Non-virulent. So they will be alive. That S strain injected to mice, that is heat killed S strain which has been injected to mice, the mice will be alive. Next, what did he do? He cultured a mixture of R strain and heat killed S strain together. So he cultured a mixture of R strain and the heat killed S strain together, and then he injected to the mice. So that is the injected the culture of to the mice. What he did? He injected that particular culture to the mice. So which will contain what? Both R strain and the heat killed S strain. So the R strain and the R strain plus S strain heat killed. What he did? He injected to the what? It injected to the mice. So what will happen? What has happened then? So the mice died. The mice dead. Why did the mice dead? Because of the pneumonia. But actually R strain is a non-virulent. So heat killed S strain is also a non-virulent. But how did this mice die? Because there was a transformation of the R strain into S strain. Though it was a heat killed, the genetic material which is found in the heat killed S strain, that is found in the S strain bacteria, was capable of transforming the R strain into S strain, that is the virulent, and obviously the mice will be die. So imagine, with this very simple experiment, he was able to prove that the transforming principle, that DNA is the genetic material. So Griffith did not identify the chemical nature of transforming material for the discovery of DNA as the hereditary material. As I said, obviously on almost all the organism, gene is the genetic material and it is responsible for the hereditary character. But that was proved by the Frederick Griffith by this very important experiment which is called as Frederick Griffith experiment. Hope you understand. This is also very important question. They may ask for 5 marks. Now moving on to the next is moving on to the next one, that is MacLeod and McCarthy were continued with the Griffith experiment to identify the transformation material responsible for the converting the R strain into the S strain. So what did they do? They purified that biomolecules, that is the protein, DNA and the RNA from the heat killed S strain to see which could be transformed that live R cells into S cells. So this heat kill strain, they added on the enzyme called protease, that is heat killed S strain they added the protein called as protease. So they added the protease plus live R strain. So, and there was a transformation. So there will be a transformation. There was a transformation. In second, heat killed S strain plus RNase plus live R strain. So there was a transformation. There also transformation. In third, he heat killed S strain plus DNA plus the what? Live R strain. So but there was a no transformation. In first case, the protein of a heat killed S strain is not the genetic material and hence there was a transformation of the R strain into the S strain because of the absence of the protein. In the second case, the RNA of heat killed S strain, it is not a genetic material and there was a transformation of R strain into S strain in the absence of RNA. But in the third case, the DNA of heat-killed S strain in the genetic material, because DNA will digest the DNA's mixture with the R strain, hence there was a no transformation in the third case. So it was proved that DNA, which is the genetic material which will brings about the transformation, that was about the MacLeod and McCarthy, who has been continued with the Griffith experiment. So here what was the conclusion of this experiment? So the protein of a heat killed S strain, it is not a genetic material, as there is a transformation of R strain into the S strain in the absence of protein. So RNA of heat killed strain S strain is not a genetic material, as there was a transformation of R strain into the S strain in the absence of RNA. And the DNA of heat killed S strain is the genetic material, because the DNA will digest the DNAs mixed with the R strain, was unable to transform the S strain, that is R strain, into the S strain. So that is about the MacLeod and McCarthy, which was being continued with the Griffith experiment.